Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and I don't know whether it's good night to some of you from down under. Welcome to Mumbai Storytellers Society's special session hosted by Niharika Aggarwal. A little bit about Mumbai Storytellers Society. We are a not for profit organization. We host monthly events and we want to create social awareness on topics ranging from education, entertainment, environment, art and culture, women's rights, child welfare, and diversity appreciation. We celebrate the art of storytelling throughout the year with workshops and events every month. It could be offline or online. We have curated about 4 international storytelling festivals, and the next international storytelling festival is scheduled in August 2026 in Mumbai. So, I would like to introduce the host for today's evening, who has curated this special edition of Stories of Acceptance. Niharika Aggarwal from Hong Kong. She's a Hong Kong-based storyteller, workshop designer, and who thrives on shaping stories, narratives, especially the true personal ones. She's performed her original work around the world, and I met her recently in Marrakesh. As the director of the Hong Kong Stories, she has trained over 100 storytellers to captivate audiences in live shows. And today, I present to you Niharika Aggarwal.
Very nice to meet you, everyone. I am really thrilled to present this collection of stories today on acceptance. Um, we scroll our news feed these days, and there are hardly any stories of acceptance, which is kind of sad. So we thought, why don't we share our own? So all of these tellers who are joining us today from different parts of the world are each going to share a true story from their own lives of a moment that led them to acceptance. This is not ChatGPT, not AI, no Copilot. This is all real experiences shared by real people. So it's going to be a fun session that we're going to have. Lots of different kinds of stories, different flavors of stories. So just prepare yourself for that. It's going to be a roller coaster of emotions a little bit. Consider yourself warned. I love Zoom, by the way, for giving us the ability to get together and have this session like this. But of course, it doesn't compare to being in a room together. There are a few things that's going to make it a little bit more engaging, a little bit more intimate for everyone. One of the things is to keep your video on if you can. Doesn't matter if you're wearing your pajamas, having your morning coffee, or munching on a snack, it's all right. Keep your videos on. We just really would love to see your bright smiles, and that would make a huge difference to the performers as well. One other thing, keep yourself on mute. So video on, yes, but keep your audio on mute just in case someone rings your bell or there's some noise in your background and there's no distraction for the teller. So just make sure right now that you are on mute. That means that we can't hear you clapping because you would want to clap. But what we can do on Zoom, if you're not familiar, is this is the Zoom clap. Can I see the Zoom clap? That's it. That is the Zoom clap. So with each performer, let's welcome them with the Zoom clap. Let's send them off with the Zoom clap. Show them that we love their story. And even while they're telling their story, if there is a part of the story that you really like, the good part about the Zoom clap is that you can do that in the middle of the story as well. Or if you feel that something really resonated with you, show it with a hand on your heart, show it with a nice symbol. It's not distracting. It's really lovely. Like it just makes a difference to the telling experience. So I do encourage you to share your reactions, to show your reactions to the tellers as you're listening to the story. And that would be awesome. After the story, if you feel like you want to share some thoughts, feel free to do that in the comments of the Zoom chat. If you do want to say something, then at the end of the show, we will open up the floor for you to share any comments or any thoughts that you have. So we can do that at that time. In the meantime, just feel free to put your comments in, and it would be lovely to hear from all of you how you're experiencing the show. These are stories of acceptance, so don't be surprised if you hear a little bit of your own story in there, because that's the whole point of personal stories. They will resonate, or parts of it will resonate with you. With that, I think everyone's had enough of me now. So let's get ready to kick off with our first storyteller today, who's going to be joining us from Ireland. She is a very versatile teller. She has been telling for a number of decades. She has written novels, short stories, personal stories, performed all over the world. And she's currently performing her one-woman show, which is based on stories from her family and also just the general history of Ireland. It's called A Fortunate Life. So, for those of you who are in Ireland or close to Ireland, please do check her out. Today, we are lucky to get a glimpse of her fortunate life. And to do that, please welcome, with a round of Zoom applause, Catherine. I'm going to spotlight her. Catherine, we're ready for you.
In my extreme youth, I got a summer job with the Red Island Holiday Camp. It was situated in a place called Skerries, a small seaside town about maybe 20 miles north of Dublin. And it was like a downmarket Butlins holiday camp. Let me explain. Butlins were set up in Britain, and the idea was they wanted to provide an all-in holiday for working class people and provide everything you could possibly want in a holiday. They had restaurants, they had cafes, they had dining rooms, they had a theatre, they had a dance hall. Red Island had a dining room that became a theatre on Saturday and a dance hall on Sunday. Butlins had a fairground attraction. It had swings, roundabouts, chairplanes. There were games. There was cricket. There was volleyball. There was tennis. There was football. You name it, they had it. They had an outside swimming pool and an inside swimming pool. Red Island had a dartboard and a snooker table, and there was a tennis court outside and a little crazy golf. And if you wanted to swim, there was the sea over there. Butlins had staff called red coats who wore red coats and provided all kinds of entertainment all day for children, for adults. There was competitions, there were games, there were all sorts of things. And then at night, they did a variety show in the theatre. Red Island didn't. Butlins catered for everybody, parents, children, teens, young people, aunties, uncles, grannies, grandpas. Red Island went more for middle-aged and older factory workers from the north of England who brought their parents on holidays with them. But now these people worked very hard all year to have money to spend on their holiday, and they spent it all because Red Island did have a bar. Now, I was the receptionist there, and obviously my duties were to book people in and give them information, answer questions, and so on. But I also had to sell them the extras, the one-day trips to places of interest. And I had to take all the names and the money. And at the end of the day, then I had to pass the money on to Seamus, the accountant. Well, not so much an accountant, more a young fellow who was good at maths. But the two of us were extremely careful about the money because the boss had told us that if anything was missing, it would be taken out of our wages. Now, we worked long hours, we were badly paid, but hey, I had a few bob in my pocket. I was away from the all-seeing eyes of my parents. I had my keep. I learned to smoke. I learned to drink. And a minor celebrity tried to seduce me and failed. I mean, what more can a girl ask for? And then I discovered I had another duty, and that was to take bets for a local bookmaker. Now, I knew nothing at all about betting. I mean, I knew you could bet to win or have an each way bet, but I discovered the accumulator. And you always knew when somebody was going to bet the accumulator because he, and it was always a he, would lurk around and wait until the coast was clear and nobody could see him. And he'd come up to the desk and he'd pass me money and give me a long list of horses and race courses, and I'd write it all down. And then he'd make me swear that I would not reveal the horses to anybody and that I definitely wouldn't reveal it to his wife if he won. So I swore across my heart and hoped to die. And then there was the sixpenny up and down, which I understood even less. All I know is that for a tiny amount of money and an extraordinary long list of horses and race courses and positions the horses would come in on, you could earn enormous amounts of money. I never discovered how much because nobody ever won. But equally, I was sworn to secrecy. And then at the end of the week, on a Saturday night, Seamus and I would gather all the bookmakers' money together and all the lists, sort it all out, and place it carefully, safely, at the back of the office where there was a table against the back wall. But the back wall was about 3 meters away from the desk. And the desk was like a rectangle cut out of a wall, and it was quite high. And to the right, there was the boss's office, and to the left, there was the door, and the door was always locked. Always. The only person with the key was the boss. So with the money on the back table, we knew it was safe. Now, Saturday night was also the gala variety show. So on this particular Saturday, we dressed up as usual because we always wanted to chat to the famous performers. And we organised the money from the bookmaker. And this time, it was a lot more than usual. It's the best part of £500. We'd never seen that amount of money before in our lives. I mean, that would buy you a small car. I mean, second hand, but it would buy you a small car. So we were very careful about this money. We sorted it out into £20, £10, £5 coins and so on. And I checked the door and Seamus checked the door and we knew it was perfectly safe. So now we could go to the counter ready to greet all the performers as they came in. And the first one, to give you an idea of what the variety show was like, the first one to come in was this blonde girl who wore like a ballerina dress in bright pink and had a flower in her hair. And she used to play the xylophone. And then there was the fat man with the red grinny face who used to play the piano accordion. And there was the ventriloquist with a really creepy dummy. And there was dancers in sparkly outfits, and there was a pop singer and a crooner and a tenor. And most of them ignored us. You know, we kind of greeted them all, but they either ignored us or said hello. But the last person to arrive always was the magician, Albert Lebas. And he was our favourite. And the reason he was our favourite was because he always came to talk to us before the show. And he always came back to talk to us when he'd finished his act. So you can see why we loved him. And on this particular Saturday, he came over to talk to us. And we were chatting about this and that. And next thing he said, you've an awful lot of money over there, haven't you? And we said, yeah, the take was much bigger this week. And he said, well, you'd want to be careful. And I said, oh, it's perfectly safe. The door's locked. And unless you, Albert, are going to jump over the counter, like, there's no problem. And he said, yeah, well, take a look at it. Be careful. Take a look. And we turned around to take a look. And the money was gone. Disappeared. Totally. Nothing. The table was completely empty. And we were, oh, Albert, what did you do? That's a trick. You must have done something. And Albert just waved and went into the hall to do his act. And we told one another, it's definitely a trick. Definitely something Albert did. We know it must be something Albert did. But then the paranoia started to get to us, and we started thinking, oh gosh, if the bookmaker thinks that if we stole it, and the boss thinks we stole it, and we lose our jobs, and they'll report us to the police, and then we'll have to go to court, and then we might have to go to jail. And we started tearing the place asunder. We opened boxes, we opened presses, we threw stuff all over the place. No sign of the money anywhere. We had to put it all back. And we kept telling one another it was a trick. It was something. It was definitely. It was a trick. It was something Albert did definitely. But in my head, I could see the judge sitting there with the big long white wig, going, guilty. We were in a fever for Albert to come back, keep reassuring us, oh, it was a trick, it was a trick. And eventually he arrived. And we're going, Albert, what did you do with the money? And he said, well, hang, calm down. What's wrong? What are you talking about? The money has disappeared. What did you do? And he said, no, it hasn't. Look. And we turned round, and there was the money, all laid out, exactly as we had laid it. We were gobsmacked. And we turned around, Albert, what did you do? How did you do that? But Albert just walked out the door. See you next week. Well, we pestered him every week after that, but we never learned any more. I began to think, oh, maybe he hypnotized us. Or maybe, just maybe, I have to accept that it was real magic.
Thank you for that entertaining story, Catherine, and for accepting on all of our behalves that magicians cannot be trusted. I seriously believe that. I declare Albert guilty, but I think it's mostly because I'm quite jealous of his skills. I tried magic, dabbled in a bit of it, and failed miserably. Guilty, guilty. Thank you so much for entertaining us, Catherine.
Pleasure.
We are now ready for our next storyteller. She's going to be joining us from Mumbai, India. She is one of the people who silently work behind the scenes in Mumbai Storytellers. And we are really happy that she's also choosing to come on camera and tell a story with us this time. So that's lovely. She is an educator, she is a mother. So you can guess that storytelling is not just a passion, but it's a survival skill for her. So please, let's welcome Srishti. Srishti, we're ready for you. Just unmute yourself and give it a start.
You know, every woman has a mirror story. I have one too, but mine isn't cute. It's the war between what I saw and what people around wanted me to see. Since younghood, I was the healthy one always. And aunties always said, कितनी cute है मेरी गुड़िया रानी. I just wish थोड़ी सी पतली होती तो perfect लगती. And I just smiled and went off. But deep inside, there was a voice whispering, you are not enough, not yet. And as I grew in college, this whisper was now a scream. Everybody around me was glowing, dating, getting noticed. And I, too huge, too loud, too me. Every photo to be retaken, every outfit to be double checked, every smile to be practiced. Yet I said, just delete that picture, yeah? I look too huge. Too huge. But that smile helped me every time. The practiced one, yes. Then came the special health spiral, PCOS, oh my. Anger issues, mood swings, weight I couldn't control, facial hair everywhere. Sometimes I didn't recognize who was that lady in the mirror. And the worst, I didn't even wanted to know who she was. Time passed, and I overheard a group of girls whispering, She's the ugly duckling. I smiled again. It broke me. I went back to my house, shut the door, and just wept in silence. That's the day when mirror became my enemy. It was no more a place for reflection, but full of inspection. Zooming into the acne scars, the flaws, the rolls, looking at the folds, everything. That's the day I decided to never look into the mirror again. I got married when I was 19. A little girl stepping into womanhood without knowing what's for me in future. But yes, by that time, I had learned how to wear a mask, how to raise my chin and fake a smile. But believe me, nothing at all prepared me for that day. A person very close to me, an authority figure, looked at me and said, "You look like a wobbly elephant. And look at the facial hair. You're starting to look like a man." No feeling, no pain. I just rushed inside the bathroom, picked up the razor, and started shaving my chin brutally. Just brutally. It was not the first time, but this time I wasn't alone. My son walked in, his eyes wide open, and trembling voice. He said, Mama, Mama, what are you doing? Are you hurting yourself?" His words didn't just stop me, but shattered me. Razor in my hand, bleeding chin, and my son standing there. Now it was not about me, it was about him. And I was really scared to see the future, the reflection of future there, that he might believe self-hurting is a way to get out of pain. And the silence might become the legacy for him. He might start believing that my worth lies in that mirror. I just hugged him very tight, and put him to the bed. And that night, I did pick up my razor again. I picked up something much harder. My courage. I looked at the mirror, and this time I really looked at her. I looked at her tired eyes, at her scarred face. I looked at the woman behind, just keeping herself together for everyone else. Also, I saw the woman who wanted to fight back. I just looked at her and I whispered, "Let's be friends. You deserve better. He deserves better too." And that moment changed everything for me. Healing didn't come with a confetti or an applause. No, it came in with the tiny steps of acceptance, self-love. And that's what I wanted to see in my son too, the reflection of self-love. I am not in the finish line yet. I'm at the messy middle, but I don't hide anymore. Yes, I do wear makeup, but sometimes with pride, I carry my scars, my facial hair, and also my under eye dark circles. But it's okay. That's me. That's what I am. Right? So, my friend, if at all you have judged yourself harsher than anyone else could, if you have smiled at the comment that actually broke you from inside, I feel you, I see you, and believe me, you are more than enough, and you are more than the mirror can ever hold.
Thank you, Srishti. Thank you, really. Stories of accepting ourselves are probably the hardest form of acceptance. Just want to give it a few seconds for that story to sink in for everyone. There were really these few lines that you said that just hit home, like being at war with the mirror every day. For in many different forms that happen for so many of us. Thank you for giving us the vocabulary to really describe our feelings. And thank you for story of self-acceptance. I think we needed to hear that.
Thank you so much.
With that, we are now ready for our next storyteller. He's going to be joining us from the UK. He is not just a storyteller, but also a poet. And he's a poet who's organized poetry slams across London. He's kind of a famous personality in London. He's even consulted on BBC shows. So you can ask him about that later. But today, he's here with us to take us to his homeland in the Caribbean, Antigua. So for a beautiful story from the beautiful Caribbeans, please welcome the handsome Baden. Once you unmute yourself, we are ready for you, Baden.
Thank you. This is a story that tells you a lot about my upbringing and the greatest teacher I've ever known. Don't that boy ever sit still? The question was directed at my grandmother, but really it was rhetorical. And the fact that it was totally redundant was underlined by the note of frustration in my voice. The subject of the question, my 8-year-old cousin Barsi, was flitting around us like a hyperactive sandfly. Zoop, zoop, zoop. It was my first trip back to Antigua. I'd left there 10 years previously at the age of 15. I was now, well, in my head, I was a fully grown man. And in recognition of my status, my Uncle Sidney lent me his car so I could get around. And when I say car, it wasn't the now ancient Ford Zephyr that I remembered from my childhood, but his new car, huge, shiny, and American, a real automobile. The first thing I did was offer to take my grandmother, I call her Mama, I offered to take her out for a drive. Really, I just wanted to show off and show her how much of a man the child that she raised had become. Mama, you want to go to the beach? I suggested. Before she could even answer, can I come? This was Barsi, all bright eyes and mischief. Yeah, all right. But you better behave. Go and get your swimming trunks. Zoop, he was gone. In a minute, zoop, he was back, wearing bright orange trunks, adjusting the string around his scrawny little waist. You, go and get in the car. Zoop, he was gone. Jesus, don't that boy walk anywhere? Mama didn't reply. Instead, she gave me a funny look And then she laughed, shaking her head. The beach was deserted in the mid-afternoon heat. A shimmering haze rose from the brilliant white sand, and it hovered, suspended in space like a giant inverted glass holding the liquid crystal blue seawater. Mama and I sat under the shade of a palm tree. Like most Caribbean islanders, I'd say, most, not just many, most. We loved spending time at the beach, but often didn't bother to go into the water. In fact, neither of us, in common with a lot of people from the Caribbean, neither of us could swim. The rhythmic sound of the waves washing ashore and the soothing, cool breeze was all the relaxation we needed. We settled down for a leisurely chat that would sooner or later be followed by a short nap. The only irritant spoiling this idyllic picture was Barcay, the only sand fly in the ointment, disappearing and reappearing every few seconds, buzzing zip, 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 just like one of the sandflies. Eventually, I'd had enough. Boy, you can't sit still. What's wrong with you? You're haunted? Mama said in a gentle voice, Junior, leave the boy alone. I turned and looked at her in surprise. She said, when you were his age, you were actually worse than him. Impossible. I was absolutely indignant. Her eyes twinkled. She looked straight at me and said, you remember that time when you couldn't walk? What do you think that was? A memory returned. At first, hazy, and then it got clearer. I was around 7 or 8 years old and had lost the use of my legs. It happened overnight. I woke up unable to walk. Mama tried everything she knew. She bathed my legs with warm water herbal infusions. She massaged them with healing ointments and oils, but nothing worked. The doctor was called. Now, in those days, polio was rampant, and that was a symptom of polio. The doctor came, he gave me a thorough examination, Mama's anxious eyes watching every move. Then he delivered his verdict. Said to her, see this boy? He's run himself into the ground. Mama said, what do you mean? And this puzzled look came over her face, replacing the anxiety. He said, I mean exactly what I said. This boy, and he paused and he pointed to my legs for dramatic effect. He's run and run until his legs can't carry him anymore. All he needs to do is rest. Stay in bed for a few days and watch. He'll be hopping around again. I did. I stayed in bed as instructed, and after 3 or 4 days, I was fine. In some ways, it was great. My cousins came around and spent hours with me, playing endless games of Monopoly and Ludo and Chinese checkers and drafts and card games, endless card games. I reveled in the attention. I loved it. And I even managed to forget that I was supposed to be suffering. I got one nasty reminder, though. On the second day, there was some kind of commotion outside in the street, some sort of procession passing by. All the others jumped up and ran off to see what was going on. In the excitement, I leapt out of bed and tried to follow them. My useless legs buckled onto me, and I collapsed in a heap of tangled limbs on the floor. And I had to lay there, helpless as a newborn foal, crying my eyes out from sheer frustration, till they came back, found me, lifted me, and put me back in the bed. Yes, that was you, said my grandmother, because she could see the recollection in my eyes, and she was beaming with amusement. You, she said, was a lot worse than him. I turned and looked at Barcay as if I was seeing him for the first time. He was a handsome little boy, large, intelligent eyes that darted everywhere, taking in everything, reflecting a curiosity that was matched only by his boundless energy. He was sitting on a large rock a few feet away where I'd told him to go and sit. He was trying to obey my irritable orders, trying his best to keep still and avoid annoying me any further. The effort was torturing him, and it showed. Come here, Sandfly. I called him over, but instead of squashing him, I cupped his little face in my hands. Go and play, I said gently. He flashed a smile that rivaled the dazzling sun, and he scuttled off as fast as his skinny, underdeveloped legs could carry him.
Thank you so much, Baden. Really, really entertaining. And you also have given me new vocabulary. Now, when I see my 3-year-old niece, I'm just going to be like, zoop, 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 zoop all the time. But on a serious note, it is difficult to accept similarities. Sometimes you can accept differences, but it is difficult to accept similarities. And I'm so glad that Mama made Junior accept that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. We are now ready for our next storyteller. She's going to be joining us from Hong Kong. But don't be surprised, once I spotlight her, you'll see she looks Canadian, but she can speak Cantonese, probably the only one on this call who could tell a story in Cantonese. Not that she's going to do that today. No, today will be in English. She is an artist, she's an educator, she's a story coach, she's done workshops and storytellings all over the world. And if you want to hear more of her stories or her voice in general, check out the Hong Kong Stories podcast. There are a lot of stories there, and she's the host of the podcast. So you will enjoy a lot more of her once you look up the podcast on there. Please welcome Rachel.
Thank you. So my friend handed me the sports bag with red and white lettering all over it. And as I saw one of the quotes that was on the sports bag, inspirational quotes, I had to really force myself to reach out and take it. The modern woman, it said, would become more effective if they replace wish with should and try with will. Well, in my 30s, I wished to become a mother. I wished to fulfill a basic human function and reproduce. And to this point, my husband and I decided that we'd sit down and have a discussion. I was ready to replace wish with should and try with will, and so was he. So we got down to it. We threw away the birth control that I've been on since the beginning of our marriage, and we discussed ways forward, shall we say. We had fun at first. I mean, it was pretty exciting thinking about what might happen, and everything is positivity and smiles, but time kept passing and we had no success. After about a year, we decided that we'd go and see a doctor. I mean, I am going to have a child. We went to see a doctor. We got poked and prodded. We had all kinds of tests. No problem, they said. We can't find any problems. You should be fine. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing it right, right? And we reassured them, yes, of course we are. Just keep doing what you're doing. It will be fine. So we kept practicing all the conventional horizontal exercise routines that needed to happen. And, we carried on. I was determined. I was going to give my husband and my family and my people that I loved a copy of ourselves. I was determined enough that we started a follicle-stimulating, ovulation-inducing, mood-altering, insanity-bringing set of hormone drugs. Now, these drugs, they may be doing what they're supposed to do, but they also change your emotions. They make you so raw and open. like fingernails on a blackboard. But I was coping. It was fine. I was going to do this. It was all going to be worth it. And as I'm on this medication, I'm looking around and all I can see is mothers and fathers and their children. The world is full of them. The months go by and still nothing changes. For 2 years, I wake up and every morning, the first thing I do is I put a thermometer in my mouth and I record on a chart next to my bed my temperature. That chart slowly becomes a record of my failure. And my shame. I'm barren. I'm incomplete. It feels unfair. Honestly, it feels monstrous. It feels like a judgment. And I look around me and I see that some deity somewhere, whatever God is in charge of all of this, is seeing fit to give women who are 12 years old babies, or people in the middle of a war zone, or women who have a heroin addiction. Somehow they measure up, but somehow I don't. And friends are very kind at this time. They're trying to give me advice, often unsolicited. Have you tried X? Or maybe Y would be helpful. Or I heard this couple did Z and it was really successful. Maybe you want to try that. It was well-meaning. And they were trying to be kind, but I didn't really hear their advice. Instead, what I heard was, it's natural. It's easy. Why can't you do it? And then there were the friends who got pregnant and were ashamed or embarrassed to tell me in the face of our failure. Now, not only am I unhappy myself, but I'm a source of lessening of joy in other people in this really amazing time for them. Some incidences stick out. There was one person in particular who got unexpectedly pregnant, and after the usual 9 months, gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. And we were good friends. And so I suggested, because we hadn't seen each other that much in the last couple of months, I suggested we meet up for coffee and she could, just catch me up on how she's doing and we could have a little chat. She says, great, we can meet in this shopping mall in a coffee shop. And so we go to the coffee shop and she's got the bassinet and I'm really excited about seeing the baby. I mean, who doesn't love newborn babies? I'm hoping to maybe squeeze his little feet and give him a little smooch. But the bassinet is covered when I go in, or when she comes in, and she puts it on the table next to us. I said, oh, can I have a look at him? And she says, no, he's sleeping. Now's not a really great time. So we chat and we catch up and we have a really lovely time. And all too soon, she says, I've really got to go. I've got lots of things to do. And I said, well, do you mind if I see him just before we go, just to have a little peek? And she looks me straight in the eyes and she says, no. In no way am I allowing you to touch my baby. I know what you're going through. I know you're a barren woman. And I know that as soon as you see it, you're going to want to steal him. That was an absolute punch in the gut. Now, not only am I unhappy, but I'm evil. I'm a threat. And what's even stranger, even though I never saw this friend again, what's even stranger was this isn't the first and only time, or this isn't the only time that this happened. It happened again. And speaking to other women in the same situation that I was in, it's not that unusual. New moms, deep in their own world of childbirth and expectation and learning how to take care of this whole new person, they've got their own journey that they're on, and it's not always very kind or inclusive to the outside world. I was on the medication for 4 years, on and off. Every monthly cycle ends in disappointment. We're going to tests We're going to doctors. Nobody can find anything wrong. But then finally, we've got the appointment with the uber, ultra, very best, most wonderful fertility doctor that we've waited on the list for 2 years to get to. And I'm sitting there in his office in my paper gown that's open at the back. He's poking and prodding me. He finishes the pelvic exam, which is always super fun. And he brings out a needle and he says, I'm going to take some blood now. And I say, whoa, hold on a minute. And I give that nervous laugh that I have a tendency to give. Hold on a minute, I say. Do you mind if I lay down again first? Because I'm not really great with needles. And he just pauses for a moment and looks at me with disdain and says, if you can't handle a simple needle, how do you think you're going to handle childbirth? And although cruel and uncalled for, his words were the key to ending my misery. Because if this ultra uber amazing guy whose whole life is dedicated to creating children for other people thinks that my stupid inability to deal with needles is going to affect my ability to have children, if that's a judgment that he's making, this isn't going to end well. My husband and I went home. We sat down. We had a discussion. We decided that we were going to go off of the drugs. We decided that we were going to take a break from everything.
Did she just say stuff?
We decided that we were going to take a break from everything. I threw away that thermometer. And suddenly, all those emotions, which were a giant pendulum swinging back and forth, started to just kind of regulate themselves into more of a gentle sway. And life started to be sweet again. I wasn't so obsessed with my inability in quite the same way. I could enjoy a day. And as those drugs came out of my system and the pressure eased off, my miracle happened. When I looked around, instead of seeing mothers and fathers and their children everywhere, suddenly the world was filled with women who were valued and important and essential, even though they'd never given birth. I am an empty vessel. But I realized that the world doesn't really need my children. I'm not that special. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I live in a time and a place and with people who value me for who I am and not what I can produce for them. I am lucky. And although it may never be written in terrible font, in red and white lettering on the back of an awful sports bag, I am already enough.
Thank you, Rachel. Can I give a few moments for that story to really sink in? It's just such a difficult story to share, but truly, I want to say thank you for showing us the kind of courage it takes to fight all these battles with everyone around you, but also inside of you. Thank you for showing us that courage. Here is my Gen Z heart for you. I think it's supposed to be something like this, but people can, is it? Yes, that's what it is. Here's my Gen Z heart for you. Thank you so much, Rachel. I promised a roller coaster of emotions, and I believe you are getting it. But we are getting close to our last story of the evening. Our last storyteller is also from Hong Kong. She is an educator, a storyteller. She tells a lot of personal stories. She's been telling and hosting shows with Hong Kong Stories for a while, but she also loves writing fiction. So she's published short stories in anthologies in Hong Kong. And by the way, there are many of you who contributed to the Student Story Slam this year by reviewing stories. That is something that Jen created because as a teacher, she understands and really appreciates the value of storytelling from a young age. So we are really, really happy to have Jen here with us today to share a story. Please welcome Jen.
Okay. So I walk into the room and I'm faced with a couple dozen 17-year-old boys. They're all leaning back in their chairs. Their arms are folded. Some of them are looking at the ground. Some of them are just giving me side eye, trying to be as far away from me as possible. This is the grade 11 boys gym class. And instead of being in the gym doing something fun like basketball, they're in a classroom with me because this was the health and personal development lesson. And I was the guest speaker who'd been brought in to personally develop them. Their teachers had been hearing different jokes and slurs about gays and lesbians, and so decided it might be time to have a speaker in to address the topic of homophobia. I was the youth worker at the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender People's Community Center in Vancouver, Canada, and that was part of my job, to go into schools and do this. We had developed an education outreach program that used personal stories to accomplish this, to challenge the misinformation and stereotypes by sharing our own human experience. The boys were not interested, but that didn't faze me. I had done this a lot. I had faced lots of audiences that over time I developed a story that kind of connected with people, and I could just slip into it no matter what was going on, either in the room or in my own life. That week in particular, I remember my girlfriend had just dumped me. But, it was fine. I just tucked that into the back of my head and kept focused on my story. I started the way I usually do by telling about kind of how the place where I worked, and then how I came out, and how my dad wasn't very accepting, but then eventually came around. And I could see as I was talking, the boys were relaxing a bit. They realized that I wasn't there to lecture them or scold them. And then I got on to describing one of the most difficult things about growing up knowing that I wasn't straight, and that was getting accurate, reliable information about dating and romance. I was in high school in the early 1980s, so we had a little bit of sex education, but it had a lot of mixed messages. If you were a girl who was interested in boys, you were reassured that sexual feelings were very natural, but you must never act on them. That was because it might eventually lead to actual sex, which apparently always led to really terrible consequences. Things like loss of your reputation, diseases, or children. So it wasn't a great message, but at least it was a message. If you were a girl who liked girls, you were invisible. At this point in the talk, one of the kids in the front row raised up his hand and asked, "So how did you get information?" I said, "Well, I just kind of had to make it up as I went along, or figure things out on my own." And then another boy, kind of behind him, had a very serious look on his face, and he put his hand up and said, "So how do you know when a girl likes you?" And I said, "Well, the same way that you do." And his serious look didn't disappear. He put up his hand again and said, "Yeah, so how do you know when a girl likes you?" Oh, that wasn't a personal question for me. That was a general information question that he was hoping to get answers on. It turned out that sex education hadn't really advanced that much further, and he was hoping that I would have some tips for him. that completely threw me off. All I could think of was my own history of mistakes and humiliations in my romantic past. And that being dumped that I thought I tucked at the back of my mind was right in front at that moment. I don't actually remember what I said, except that I know that I muttered some nonsense about, oh, don't be afraid to take risks and, don't get discouraged if things don't work out. And it was totally awful. It was the worst. And I thought for sure, my face was hot. I couldn't make eye contact anymore. I thought I'm losing this audience. But the questions kept coming. Kid at the back raises his hand. Yeah, like I want to know, have you ever been like totally shot down by a girl? Oh, wow, shot down. That is a very negative expression. I'd like that may, I sometimes things don't work out and sure, I've had some experiences and bad ones, maybe recently and I was trying very hard to look and sound casual, but it was written all over me. I had totally been shot down. And at the back there was another hand. Dude, that's so harsh. I was a dude now? That snapped me out of my embarrassment. I looked at the faces around the room and realized that they were now all leaning in and they were nodding and they had caring expressions on their faces. All of those boys were feeling my pain. My aim had been to go in and show the human side of being queer. Things did not go as I expected or even wanted, but in the end, I think I still managed to hit my mark. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jen. Or maybe I should say, it's cool, dude. We liked it. I think you've left us with hope and motivation that the future generation is better educated than ours. But no, sex ed has not progressed. And you're very welcome to give the same stories, lectures in India because sex ed is non-existent in India. Thank you so, so very much for sharing that story. And that is it. Those were our 6 tellers from all over the world, sharing all sorts of different flavors from their lives. Before I wrap up the evening for today, I just have one thing to say is that everyone has a story to tell. And you will hear Rachel say that on the Hong Kong Stories podcast all the time. So if you want more inspiration, you can listen to the stories on the podcast, but everyone really does have many stories to tell. And if you feel like after listening to all these stories, there is a story in you that wants to come out, do reach out to Mumbai Storytellers Society. You have their email. Let them know that you would like to share a story. And all of us who shared stories today also love shaping stories. So we would be happy to work with you to shape stories. And I also want to say a big thank you to Mumbai Storytellers Society for inviting us to share our stories and be able to really do this today evening. Thank you. And thank you, Usha.
Thank you, Niharika. If we can have everyone on the grid view, and we would love to have questions. So I'm going to stop recording now.